Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Twat Talk. I know it's been a while. It really fucking has been a while. It's been, what, like 8, maybe 9 months or so? That's enough time for someone to have a kid. If you were pregnant, if you got pregnant when the last episode went out, congratulations on having a child. But yeah, so here we are. We are here with, I guess this is season 3. Yeah, season 3 of the podcast. You'll notice that I am no longer joined by a co-host, the Imperial Academy, as I have been for the last little while. And that's because the two of us have sort of realised that... So when we started doing the podcast together, when the Imperial Academy came on board I did an interview, and then we started hosting together. Since then, our schedules have gotten very busy, and they don't match up as much as we would like. And that's kind of why the podcast has sort of fell to the wayside as I've worked on, like more projects and stuff like that, and just generally life getting in the way, as it does. So I've decided to move the podcast back to just me hosting and occasionally having guests. But also what we're going to do is I'm going to try and stick to, at the very least, one episode per month to coincide with the fact that the upload schedule has changed to one video per month. So this one's not going to be about any particular video. But what I'm going to do is talk about the last couple videos that I've done since maybe around about April, May time. And generally talk about like videos this year, give you guys a bit of an update on what's happening. But what these will mostly be now is a sort of behind the scenes podcast where each time one comes out, it will coincide with a new video. It will come out the week after. So, like for example, the last video came out on July 13th, so the next one would have came out on the 20th. That kind of thing. This one's now going up into August. I'm not going to do one for the next video because it's a bit too late now, but I will do it for next month's video. Once this has come out and everything. So September's video, that will kind of be the start of the regular podcast and everything. But at the minute we're just going to talk about kind of what's been happening with videos this year, because I did say I would do an update when I had a decent amount of information. So basically we'll go back a little bit to December. So since December, so the last podcast was in November, and around about December, I started doing a bunch of videos. I did Arkham Asylum, I did Arkham City, I did Arkham Origins, and then I did Gotham Knights, all between the start of December and the start of February. So basically what happened there was I got time off. And as I normally do, when I have time off, I tend to work on videos a lot more because I've got more time. So I just sort of pump them out and pump them out and pump them out, space them out a little bit so that when I do get busy again, you guys aren't left without a video. But what was happening was I finished Arkham Asylum and I was really happy with it. I finished Arkham City and I felt good about it. By the time I got to Arkham Origins, I was getting a bit sick of the Arkham series and having to cover, like all the same mechanics again, like the free flow combat, the stealth, things like that. So there were a lot of the videos as they go on. I felt like they got a bit sloppier, at least in terms of content and things like that, and what was covered and how it was covered. And I then followed that up with what ended up being the biggest video I'd made at the time, at least in terms of the like the research and the prep work and everything, and that was Gotham Knights. I recorded well over 30 hours of gameplay for that. And previously, my biggest one compared to that was maybe Spider-Man, and that was 25-ish hours to 100% the thing. Gotham Knights, I came nowhere close to 100%, but I did as much as I could. I finished the story twice, I think. I finished it twice. Once in multiplayer, once in single player. And I did multiple runs of Heroic Assault. And I did, like quite a bit of free roaming with the other characters that I hadn't used. So I used Red Hood in the first playthrough, Nightwing in the single player, and then I did some free roam with Red Hood to sort of balance it out. Then did Robin and Batgirl as well. And I did a lot for that video. I got a lot of footage. That video is the biggest in terms of the sheer size of the files that I had. But yeah, so I did all of those videos back to back, and they were all quite similar in terms of, what we were covering and things like that. It was Batman and things related to Batman. So I was getting a little bit tired of it, and I decided, I think it was around about Christmas or something, that I played through BioShock, and on New Year's Eve, this shows how cool I am, I spent New Year's Eve writing, and essentially like the end of 2023 into 2024, I was writing the BioShock script, and I practically wrote the whole thing as it appeared in one night. And I was quite proud of it. It was like 11 pages long. It was like one of the longer scripts that I'd done. I don't think it was quite the longest. I think that goes to the Resident Evil trilogy, which I think was about 15 or 16 pages, I think. Something like that. So, but BioShock was big. BioShock was a massive project. It was a big one to undertake. I put a bit more production value into that one, and the views seem to somewhat reflect that. Because people fucking loved it. People, for whatever reason, people really like that video. Nowadays, I'm maybe not as fond of it as I was. I'd still say it's one of my best to date. But in terms of how I covered the game, I maybe could have done a bit more, but I think I gave it a good look, and I covered the story quite well, I thought, interspersing it with like bits of analysis as they became relevant. So not talking about, combat and then exploration, then the story. I sort of weaved the story into talking about areas and like level design and combat and things like that. And I thought I did quite well at weaving it all together. But I finished that video in late February, mid to late February. And I towards the end of that, I was really starting to burn out, essentially. I had pushed myself way too hard, I'd basically done 5 videos in the space of like 2 months, which isn't healthy in the slightest. It's not good to do that, especially when the videos are all like roughly, the shortest one out of them is Arkham Origins, and that's 13 minutes, and the longest is BioShock at 35. So you've got roughly an average of about 20 minutes of video, and pumping out so many of them in such a short span of time, back to back, not stopping at any point, it really just, it killed me. It absolutely killed me, and any sort of like enthusiasm that I had at the time. So what I did is, instead of publishing BioShock right away, I put it up for scheduling in March. And I thought, okay, I finished this in kind of mid-February. What I'm going to do is take No, sorry, I finished it in early February. That's what it was. And I thought, right, okay, this whole month I'm gonna to take a step back and just relax for a bit. Take a second, chill the fuck out, and slow down. I'd already started writing the next video, so like I finished that script. But I didn't film anything, I didn't edit anything, and I didn't touch the script for that month, apart from towards the end when I was feeling a bit better. Um, but yeah, so as much as I enjoyed the Bioshock video, and everyone else seemed to really like it, and a lot of people seem to think that it's like at the minute it's the best thing I've made, which I'll agree on. Um, it nearly killed the channel essentially because I was like, because I think that video was just the culmination of everything that had happened like the month prior, and I was like, okay, I need a break. And it was a friend that had actually said to me like, hey, are you doing okay? Because you seem really fucking out of it at the minute, and it's probably burnout. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So take that month off, and we were all good. So then March 9th rolls around, that video comes out, and I officially considered that my point of, right, it's time to get back on. It's time to get back on the horse. So for that next month, I worked on the Crash Bandicoot video. And while I was making that one, it felt a bit better, it felt more fresh, because despite the fact that it was still about 36 minutes all in, because I was covering 3 games, it didn't feel like as much of a task as Bioshock. I could split it down into smaller pieces. And also, I tried a couple different things. Like the editing was kept a bit more fresh. It was the first time I'd covered a game where I'd actually recorded off of like native hardware, recorded off my PS2. So it gave me this kind of new refresher almost, that like the games weren't as heavy on plot and things like that as something like Bioshock. So it just gave me a bit of time to kind of reset into it. And it was a nice, fairly simple video to make. And it was all good. There is the April Fool's video that was in there. That had been prepared, I think, about a year in advance when I had the idea. So that I don't consider that part of the process. That was already kind of it. That was already there. So then, sort of into May and things like that, I worked on a shorter video where it's the opening to MGS2, and that video again, I wanted to try something different. So I thought, okay, instead of talking about an entire game, let's talk about just how good this opening is. And I think I could have done a little bit more. I think I could have done it a little bit better. I could have gone a bit more in depth on, like how the game subverts a hell of a lot more and things like that. But for a short 7-minute video, where it was basically our first impressions of the game, it was good, and I liked the cinematography in it. Thank you very much to Fake Sheeb for helping me with that and being my cinematographer for the day, because I always feel weird going out in public to do these videos, so I always like to take someone with me, and normally that's either Sheeb or it's the Imperial Academy. So I want to thank the two of them for coming with me and putting up with my bullshit. But yeah, so I worked on that, and that video was sort of, again, another refresher. It was quite easy. It wasn't a big video. But all of this was leading up to the big MGS2 video that came out in June. So that's, how I fell in love with Metal Gear Solid 2. That was the video that sort of tipped me over the edge a little bit, where I'm happy with it for the most part in terms of its production and like how much detail I went into. I'm quite happy with it in terms of its content, but I was starting to feel, and other people I've spoken to have relayed this back to me when I've said it. They've agreed the videos were all starting to feel, apart from Bioshock, they were all starting to feel a bit like a factory process where each one of them was coming out and they all looked the same, they felt the same to make. There wasn't anything linking the style of the video to any particular game. And I was really getting quite annoyed with them, really, because and it was that video that pushed me over the edge, because towards the end of the editing for that, I was starting to fucking hate it. Like, I actually started to really dislike the kind of video that I'd ended up making. Again, the content of that video I'm happy with, but the presentation of it and everything, it feels a little bit janky and a little bit unrefined and everything. It feels very amateur when I compare it to the video immediately after it, and sort of the way that I'm starting to push the channel now. But yeah, so Metal Gear Solid 2, I was overall, like I say, I'm happy with that video, but it was a turning point. I mentioned this at the end of September's video because it's already finished, but I basically had like a total writer's breakdown and really took myself aside and looked at what I had written for the next big script. And I looked at it and I thought, this is fucking dreadful. Like, this is turning out the exact same way that it's, we'll cover, like, the mechanics. Like, we'll cover, like, this mechanic. We'll cover level design, we'll cover sound, and then we'll do a story summary, essentially, which was taking up half the fucking video. I think the original version of that script had about 4 pages dedicated to a, quote, brief story summary, which I then managed to get down to, I think, about a page, maybe 2 pages. Actually, I think it was like a page and a half, roughly. I cut it down to for the final one, when I chucked the whole thing out and I completely fucking rewrote it. And I've done the same, basically, at the minute. None of the scripts are pre-written from, like, the video for September is already finished. Anything after that has not been done yet. But yeah, so I think I wanted to get a more, it felt like, for example, with Metal Gear Solid 2, it felt like I was starting to just sound like I was reading off the Wikipedia article. I was more just stating, and I've done this in a lot of reviews, I felt like I was just stating what the game did and why it did it and how it did it, rather than how any of it actually made me feel as a player to experience. And I think that's something that kind of came up with MGS2, where, yes, I do talk about how, like, for example, I got really confused at the back half of that story, but I don't think it didn't quite live up to where I wanted it to be. And the best way that I can describe it is, it felt like I was reading the Wikipedia article, but I'd rewritten the whole article. So it very much did just feel like, I'm spouting fact after fact after fact rather than any feelings. So what I decided to do was take a break from the bigger scripts and try and work on things that were more based on vibes rather than based on, like, interesting mechanics or breaking down at every aspect of a game. And that's where July's video came from, Games Lost to Time. That is in its entirety, it is a vibe-based script. And I would honestly say that is the peak of my content creation here on YouTube, is Games Lost to Time. Because that video is a topic that I am passionate about. It's, you can't play some games nowadays. I'm not going to recap the whole video here. But, like, I felt that the vibes of that video were fitting for such a depressing topic that games are, as the title suggests, they're being lost to time because either publishers are getting rid of them or they're stuck on old hardware and they've not been re-released. Not, they don't even need to be like remastered or remade or anything like that. I'm talking about even just getting a release out. You know, like taking that original game and porting it elsewhere, which, don't get me wrong, I understand that that is one hell of a process to try and port something, especially from older consoles to newer. But at the same time, it saddens me that so many experiences are stuck on really expensive hardware, or they're really expensive to get your hands on because people don't want to port old games for whatever reason, despite the fact that they could probably make a shit ton of fucking money off of selling, you know, new copies of the original Silent Hill 2 or Silent Hill 3 or things like that, or Metal Gear Solid 4. But anyway, that's basically just recapping that video now. But that was truly an experiment in vibes only, no facts to it. And I thought it came out really well. And I tried a new thing as well of filming from multiple angles, to give the video something to cut to and to cut away from. It needed something, because if it had just been the one camera angle, I think it would have got boring very quick and the delivery would have been off. But I think having the two angles, giving me something else to cut to, really helped. Don't get me wrong, it doubles the fucking length of time that you spend filming it, but I think it's worth it in the end. And August's video, which I think this will come out before, so I'm not going to spoil what it is. It does a similar thing where it's entirely vibes based, and again, it's one of those ones where I'm like, I could have maybe gone into a bit more detail with some things, but at the same time, I don't really need to. I think I kind of get to the point of it, and I think it'll only improve with time. And then, like I say, next month's video, September's video, was completely rewritten from what it originally was, and I think it came out a lot better. I'm a lot happier with it. I used these new techniques that I'd found, and I just completely changed how I wrote it. And don't get me wrong, there's still more work to be done. I think one of the things I need to try and embrace is my more natural delivery, with more sort of accent behind it, and these kind of things. And trying to find my natural cadence for conversation that doesn't make it sound like I'm tripping over my words. So one of the things that I'm possibly looking at is getting rid of that sort of forced presenter-ish tone that I sort of take, where I'm like, so today we're going to talk about this. Like, get rid of that sort of tone and bring it back more towards how I talk. Which unfortunately might sound more boring, but I think it will come off as a better... I think it will come off a lot better. It will come off more natural. It will come off more seamless. And it's just finding that rhythm and cadence and the way that I talk, and training myself to feel more natural on camera, rather than feeling the need to present and project, but just getting that sort of natural performance out of me, which is something I need to work on. So, but yeah, we've got a couple videos that are sort of vibes based that are in the works, but I don't want to do them too frequently because a lot of them are quite sad, or they're a bit self-indulgent, which I don't know if many people would want to see that regularly, like me sort of indulging on feelings and shit like that, but who knows. Maybe in the future I can merge more of that into the channel, along with doing, these every month, where I can tell you about the process of making a video and where certain bits of it have come from and things like that. So, but yeah, I think this is sort of a very natural conclusion here for this podcast, at least. As sort of an introduction to season 3, you're back with me as your only presenter. Don't worry, I will still have guests on from time to time. It will just be more like it used to be, where it's as if you're sitting down with me having a chat. Because I want that to be more part of the channel. Because I feel like because of the one video a month thing, and because they have now got a higher production value, there's less of that personal touch to them. Where Games Lost to Time, for example, perfectly got that vibe of like a conversation that you'd have at 1 a.m, sitting with a friend, and you're just both a bit tired, and you get those deep chats where, it's maybe a bit depressing, but you both get a bit of insight out of it. And I think bringing that here to the podcast will be a good place to put it. And for me to talk about the behind the scenes and how different videos get made and how I feel about them now that they're finished, rather than having the end of video rambles. So they'll probably go in lieu of having a podcast that comes out a week later. So yeah, I hope yous are all excited for that. I know I am. I'm excited to see where this sort of takes us and where it goes. But yeah, so I hope you all enjoy. By the time this comes out, next video will be in, I think, about 2 weeks. So I hope you are ready for that. August 17th is the next video. So I hope you are ready, because I fucking loved it. There won't be a podcast after that one, but keep your eyes peeled for September, and there'll be a podcast after that video comes out. So I will leave you all there, and I will see you all next time for the next episode of Twat Talk. Bye.